All right, there is a bunch of stuff in this unit 6 that we are not going to do. So yesterday we did 6.2. Today we're skipping all the way to 6.6. And we're going to be solving radical equations. And we are going to spend 2 days on this. So I'm going to go ahead and call this 11, 30, and 12, 1. All right, so I think you guys are going to be okay with this. Today's lesson's not too terrible. Tomorrow gets kind of difficult, but if you're pretty good at solving equations, today I think you're going to be just fine. If you're not great at solving equations, maybe today you'll get a little bit better. But our first step is to isolate the radical on one side of the equation, and we're just going to skip around. We're not just going to do all the even or all the odd. We'll skip around. So the first one we're going to do is number 2. And we're going to isolate the radical first. So do you think it matters which side the radical is on? It actually doesn't matter. We can move it to either side. So I feel like on this problem in particular, the quickest way to isolate the radical is just to move it to the right side. And so you can think of that different ways. You can think if it's negative on the left, it's going to be positive on the right. That's what I like to think. Or you can actually like add it to itself and then add it to 0. Either way that you think about it, it's going to be that 3 is equal to the 4th root of m. All right. And then I'm pretty sure this is the first time you guys have done these types of questions. But can you think of a way, like we don't want the 4th root of m, we just want m. So can you think of a way to get rid of the 4th root? Anybody? Just guess. You don't multiply it by 4, but you do something with a 4. Power 4, good. So that's the next step. You're going to raise each side of the equation to the power of the index to eliminate the radical sign. So that means we're going to raise both sides to the 4th power. All right, 3 to the 4th power is 3 times itself 4 times, or you can type it in the calculator, 3 to the 4th. That's going to be 81. And then the 4th power just cancels out the 4th root, and you're just left with m. You're just left with what's underneath. Right? And then the last step says to check for extraneous solutions. And this might be the first type of equation you've solved that has extraneous solution. But an extraneous solution is just a false solution. It's a answer that you get by doing everything right. You do everything you're supposed to do, but it just, when you plug it back in, it just doesn't work. So the only way you know if it's an extraneous solution is to check your solution. So I'm just going to mark off a section in my box and I'm going to check. And when you check it, you want to plug it back into the original problem. All right, so all right, when I plug this in, I'm just going to do 3 minus. And then when you want to do the 4th root, you're going to hit 4 for a 4th root, and then math, and then number 5. So it'll take that, the last thing you typed, and it makes it the index. All right, I do get 0, so that's good. That means it is a solution. All right. Now they're going to get a little more difficult than that one. So let's look at another one. Let's look at number 3. So same thing. We want to isolate the radical. This whole radical is the square root of a plus 7. So that 10 needs to be subtracted from itself to make it 0 and subtracted from the other side. All right. Then once there's nothing outside of your radical, you're going to raise both sides to the power of the index. So for a square root, what do you think you're going to use? 2. Yep. So you're going to square both sides to get rid of a square root. Right? And then that square just cancels out the square root, and you're just left with a plus 7. And then 1 squared is 1. And then you just, on this one, you just have one more step, and it's to subtract 7. Right? So a is probably -6, but there's a possibility that it's a false solution. All right, so when I'm checking this, I'm going to put it back into the original problem. Now, to get the square root, you can just do second x squared. It works. 11 equals 11. Okay, we're going to skip down and do number 5 next. All right, now originally last class I didn't do number 5, I did number 6, but then they kept making the same mistake, so I felt like I needed to show you guys this. But anytime that there's a power on your parentheses, you cannot multiply into it. So we cannot multiply by -9, but I need to get rid of the -9. So what do I do with it? Well, what's going on between the -9 and those parentheses? Multiplication. So if I want to get rid of it, I'm going to divide by it. Right? So this one doesn't have a radical symbol, but what does it mean to raise something to the 1/2? This was yesterday. Square root. So this technically is a square root, even though it doesn't look like it. So if I want to get rid of that power of a 1/2, I'm just going to square both sides. All right, and so technically that just cancels out. When you multiply that, it becomes 1. So you're just left with c minus 12. And then we'll just add that 12. And c is probably 28, but we can make sure. So whenever you square both sides, it cancels it. Because like when it's a power raised to a power, you multiply and it just becomes 1, which you didn't need. All right, so again, we get -36 equals -36. So just move that. So 28 is a solution. All right, we're going to skip down and do number 7. What would you guys do first on number 7? What do y'all think? If I want to get this by itself, what would you do with that 9? You add it. Good. Okay. And then if I want to get rid of a 4th root, what do you think? What power? 4th power. Good. So the 4th power just completely gets rid of the 4th root, and you're left with 8k plus 12. Now you have to be careful when you raise negative 2 to the 4th. You have to put it in parentheses. And then the 4th power on the outside. Otherwise, it's not going to raise the negative to the 4th. It'll just raise the 2 to the 4th. So that is going to be 16. All right, and then from here, just a couple of steps. Subtract 12. Divide by 8. And we're going to get that k is 1/2, maybe. So don't forget, 4th root, you do 4, math, 5. Okay, so this is what I was talking about with the extraneous solution. Like, we did everything right, but in the end, we got that negative 7 equals negative 11. Negative 7 is never going to equal negative 11. So what you do is you just mark it out, and then you're going to say that there is no solution. Every equation doesn't have a solution. So because when we checked it, we got something that was false, it's just a false solution. And you just don't know unless you check your answers. All right, we're going to do one more today. We're going to do number 10. Right, now, number 10 has the radicals on both sides, but it really is not going to make it any more difficult than the ones we just did. So because it's the 4th root, we're going to go ahead and raise both sides to the 4th power, and I'll just get rid of the root. And then we want to get our d's on one side, so I'm going to go ahead, since this one was negative, I'm going to go ahead and add the 2d. All right, and then this is just a 2-step equation, so we'll add the 3. And then divide by the other 3. All right, and d is probably 10, but we need to make sure. So I'm just going to jot down that decimal real quick and just make sure I get the same thing on the other side. And I do. So this one checks out. All right, so that means that 10 is the solution. All right, so today I want you guys to go back and any of these that we skipped, I want you to do them for your assignment. So there's 5 of them. So don't do anything below number 10. So just do 1, 4, 6, 8, and 9, please.